believe Chapter 4 has been a tough unit of information, but the good news is this is the last lesson for the unit. Tomorrow you'll come in and take a pretest. It is in your best interest to show up tomorrow so you can actually do the pretest and see how you'll perform later on. Thursday we'll come in and go over that pretest so you can see where your mistakes were, and then Friday we'll actually take the real test. Those of you who have been here, you understand that it's probably a very good thing for you to do, just because again you get a chance to make your mistakes, learn from them, and then try to do better the day after. So again, talking today about arithmetic sequences. Arithmetic sequence is a series of terms that have the same difference between them. We've seen this before. We call that common difference. As it says, we've worked with them before when we found the common difference, but this time around we're not going to be given a table or ordered pair. They're just going to give us the series of numbers. So considering the following problem and looking at what they're going to have us do, it's just going to say, and it's a very simple question, this is a very brief lesson here. It's going to say describe the pattern and find the next two terms of the sequence. So notice this isn't set up in ordered pairs, it's just a series of numbers. And so what we're doing here is we're saying, well, we subtract 4 to get here, we subtract 4 to get there, we subtract 4 to get there. So to describe the pattern we would say subtract 4. That would be our words for your description. Again, you're going to be asked to do this on your test Friday. That's all you have to do. To describe the pattern for me, you just subtract 4 over and over. And then they want the next two terms. Well, 13 minus 4 is 9, and then 9 minus 4 is 5. And that would be it. That's all they're going to ask you to do. Recognize the pattern, identify the pattern, describe it, which is what we did here, and then continue that pattern to see how it works. So our answers are 9 and 5. So another example real fast, just to make sure we get the idea. It'll say describe the pattern and find the next two terms of the sequence. From 2 to 13, I think 13 minus 2 is 11. It's adding 11. Looks like that's adding 11, and this is also adding 11. So my word would be add 11 in terms of my description of it. And to find the next two terms, I'll simply add 11 to this, which is 46. And 46 plus 11 would be 57, and that is it. Typically units like this usually end on something easy because you've already had a hard enough time with everything else, so that's why this isn't so bad to really do. So this does represent the final piece of information we need for this week's test, but let's look at some review problems real fast to try to bring some of this back to your memory also. It says determine whether the graph represents a function, and they give us a graph. Remember that we do something called the vertical line test, and that vertical line test says that as long as I can draw a vertical line that only crosses once all the way through it, that it passes, but once it hits more than once, that it fails. Well, I can see a vertical line right here that hits here, so is this a function? Your answer is no, it's not a function. Keep in mind it had to be something like this, or it had to move something like this for it to be a function, because that does not fail. Alright, so that's one question you're going to be seeing. I hope you're ready for that on Friday. B is one of those graph questions that we had and we haven't seen for a while. Talks about the depth of water in feet. Increase as the gallons are added. They want to sketch and label a graph. So keep in mind we have to be able to do this also. The gallons or whatever is first is usually your independent variable, and you have to label that. You have to also label your other part as depth. Your gallons, notice, go up to 24, so we're going to count by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. And it looks like I have to go up to 4.5, so I'm going to count by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you just put your dots. So 18, 2 means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, up to where about 2 is. What I told you before, if you remember, is that you don't need to be perfect. I just need to make sure your numbers are in the right general area. 21, 3.5, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. 21 would be at the halfway point. 3.5 is somewhere around there. And so we'd be looking at something like this. And then 24, 4.5, of course that's 24. 4 is about there. 4.5 is going to be about there. And again, as long as your dots are in the general vicinity of where they're supposed to be, you will get that right. Just don't forget you need to label what you're counting by for me. You also need to label whatever the parts are. And the way you know it goes on the bottom is that it's the first part of the table that goes down. This is your x-axis, just like x is usually here and y is usually there. Alright. And the last thing we want to do is a question that does the rule. The first thing the question is going to say is it determine if it's linear. So we're going to look at this and recognize it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is adding 1. This is adding 3. This is adding 5. And this is adding 7. So is it linear? No would be your first answer. That you need to tell me is that it's not linear. But now we need a rule. So here we add 2, and add 2. Now remember what it means if it takes me 2 tries is that my rule starts off as y equals x squared. But what I have to do now is generate my work here. So I plug in 0, 0 times 0, because remember 0 squared means 0 times 0 is 0, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. The actual numbers are 2, 3, 6, 11, and 18, and that's where we have to look and say, what are we doing with this side to make it match over here? And it looks to me like all we are doing is adding 2. Now whenever you start with 0, it's easy to see that, because in order to get from 0 to 2 I would add 2 anyway, and so you can kind of use that as you're getting used to it. But whatever it is, just be sure you're again getting this stuff down. So again, you can go ahead and put your computers away and go get the worksheet for the day. It is important that again you begin to bring some of this material back to your memory. Tomorrow, as I said, we'll take a pre-test. Then we'll go over on Thursday. You'll take the test on Friday, and we will move on past all of this stuff. So good luck again. Use each other. Use me. Make sure you take care of whatever questions or issues that you might have.